Yeah. But today, like I said, we're going to be doing the Terrifier series. And this was good because we did a review for Terrifier 2, which is up on the YouTube channel, youtube.com. Just type in the afternoon tune and you'll see our review for the second Terrifier film. And then so I went back, I watched the first Terrifier and then also the other films that preceded it, All Hallows Eve. So I watched those on Tubi, though all the two All Hallows Eve movies are on Tubi, and then the two Terrifier movies are on Peacock. There's a third Terrifier movie coming up. I think I don't know, with all this writer strike stuff kind of going on. I don't know. It's scheduled for next year, I believe.
Yes,
Is
2024.
released 2024. So I don't know if that is probably subject to change due to everything kind of going on there. So that may be subject to change.
Right.
Let me fix this. Yeah. But yeah, that may be subject to change. Yeah. So yeah, but Terrifier, I think it really kind of brought out to more bigger audiences when Terrifier 2 came out. Because yeah, it just kind of swept things. Everybody was kind of like this hit out of nowhere, and it came out, I believe it was a couple years ago now. Terrifier 2.
Terrifier 2 was last year, 2022.
Last year.
Yeah.
Okay, last year, 2022. Yeah. So it kind of just swept things there on the small budget, made a bunch of money. So it was this kind of big success. So I'd never heard of the character before Terrifier 2. What about you?
I have a history with Art the Clown, to say the least. Interestingly enough, I worked as a mascot at Six Flags when I was a teenager. And when Halloween came around, I was a horror mascot. And I'll save you on the gritty details, but it was a miserable experience. But when we had our breaks, we would go into this RV, and a lot of other teenagers, we would just either play movies or just show each other clips on each other's phones. Not me. Even when I was like a teenager in like 2016, I saw like the cruddy like drug dealer phone. They just flip up that. But I told my friends to type in, "Hey, check out like this fan made like Batman project called by Bat in the Sun," and like the guy that got to do Joker was really good, and they said to me, "Oh, you should check out this series then if you like this fan project." It was called Terrifier because we talked about we were at that teenage phase where we were talking about like really hardcore horror stuff to seem cooler than we were. And I didn't know much about it. All I knew was that it was like a heavily controversial film, and I did not watch it on Amazon. I watched it on a TV. I don't remember what had it at the time, but once I saw it, I remember it was back when YouTube. Some people would just upload the whole movie up on YouTube, and because it was such like an indie grindhouse thing. Not did YouTube not censor it, but they didn't even block it or like put it up at the edge. I'm sure that's changed by now.
Yeah,
and it was very interesting, but like it's a movie that I have a kind of a love-hate relationship with. And then Terrifier 2, I heard that being announced on a budget of like $250K, and it made back like 17 million, which was like really cool. And I talked to some friends. I'm like, "Hey, you guys want to see Terrifier? You want to see Terrifier?" And no one would see it with me. And so I went there alone. I was the only one in the theater watching Terrifier 2 at the Regal Cinema. And it was just me in the cinema. I just had this whole experience towards myself. And it was like I could just kind of react however I want to. And then, yeah, I just like I saw how much he improved and like with the characters and stuff. And then I got more into the history of it. And I think what really impressed me is that it really reminds me of that like 70s to 80s era of exploitation horror that we don't see too much, at least on a big screen like this. Of like, because I can't think of a ton of movies like Terrifier the series, mainly because not only does it have such a low budget, but it has such like a unique low budget feel, which I don't think a lot of people talk about.
Mhm.
And with a lot of low budget movies, like there's nothing really. It's hard to say, but a bunch of like grindhouse horror like this, or like there's nothing fun about it. And the character of Art, as disturbed as he is played masterfully by David Howard Thornton, who is hilarious and terrifying as Art.
Yeah. Now when I first saw this, the sequel, so like I said, the sequel came out last year.
Mhm.
The first movie came out in 2018. So did you see, before I give my thoughts, did you see all these movies? So did you see also All Hallows Eve or just the,
Yes, I saw all.
okay.
It was played by a different actor at the time. I actually saw Terrifier 1 first, then All Hallows Eve, then Terrifier 2. And
Oh,
have you heard of that new Peacock show
what people?
with Pete Holmes?
No, I haven't heard.
Well, apparently Art the Clown is in it.
Oh, okay.
As like a little cameo. I'm not sure if like
Interesting.
he's just watching TV or like maybe it's Pete Holmes tripping or something.
Okay, no, I haven't heard of that. Yeah, well, I do have Peacock, so maybe I'll check it out. There. So yeah, so All Hallows Eve there was the very first one of these line of kind of was starring Art the Clown. Like you said, it was played by a different actor, by a person named Mike Janelli.
Mhm.
Here, which so this game, the first one came all the way back in 2013, which was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, you could definitely feel like very low budget type of thing there. The first one just involves like a videotape and kind of a family popping it in and watching it. It was kind of, not really even so much a lot of Art the Clown in it. Just like all these kind of other weird aspects to it. Kind of was kind of interesting, like the tape,
Yeah.
maybe had some magical powers or something like that. The whole lore of kind of Art the Clown and the what he can do is kind of a mystery,
Yeah.
to make him do various different things. Of course, you have your traditional like, horror movie villain thing where he can teleport, once he's there, boom, he's not there, like your
Mhm.
Michael Myers or your Jasons. But I think with when I saw the sequel to Terrifier 2, yeah, the performance by Art the Clown, the actor there, like you mentioned, Matt David Thornton, was very good. Very very interesting kind of performance. A lot of what he did with his body, with his face. Obviously, a lot of it also helps with the makeup and everything like that too. The whole kind of look of Art the Clown. That also kind of helps, but it's a very kind of very iconic type look, I think, also,
Yeah.
as well. There, and he, researching about the actor and his inspirations there, like kind of from minds and actual clowns and how he kind of incorporated all to his performance was very interesting to learn. So I very much kind of enjoyed that. Usually I'm not too big into the whole kind of gory gore fest type horror stuff, torture porn type stuff there. Typically I'm not that much into it. And I was like, okay, so somewhat you got to be maybe in the right mood,
Right.
or
Of course.
yeah. So it's definitely not for everybody. That's the issue I had with like what was that movie with Eli? Oh, Green Inferno.
Hostel. Oh yeah,
Uh
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Hostel, I was like Hostel, I didn't
I have
mind.
mixed opinions on Hostel.
Yeah, but Green Inferno, I was like, this is just,
Gross.
an hour plus of people just being tortured
Mhm.
and all that. It's like this is, yeah,
Yeah.
this is really nothing for me. So what's your opinion on movies like that? Movies with a lot of gore and especially like this.
I can personally stomach it a lot of the time, uh, especially with kind of how dog. Uh, to a degree, there's almost like a absurdity to what art does. That's like the practical effects are amazing, but they are just like uh, uh, they are like it's so like much blood, and I'm sure a human would bleed so much after what art does, what he does. But it's like it's almost funny in a morbid way.
Mm,
Like there's usually a Freddy Krueger esque pun to it.
mm,
Uh, I was thinking actually like Nightmare on Elm Street like 3 of just like how sadistic and but personal Freddy gets, and how like there's always uh, a very specific way towards his kills that like it kind of makes you cringe, but like you can't look away. like when the whole I think this is what Terrifier 2 kind of uh, hit out of the park a bit more than the first one. Is like there's a bit more jokes with Art's kills. Like obviously the guy who comes up with the shirt that says "just a tip." Once I saw that guy, I went, "Oh no." Because I knew what was going to happen next. Well, I knew something along those lines, and it's just Art does it just so violently and brutally, and that it's interesting. But I do think that both these movies kind of have a separate problem with there's no. This is going to sound weird, but there's no real message or theme. I know that might sound odd, but like even the most violent exploitative movies that I liken this to, such as Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Wolf Creek, uh, those do have a theme and a message. And like with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's commentary on the Vietnam War and the meat industry, and like rural people kind of losing their jobs and like different American culture. Wolf Creek, there's about like Australia's like kind of dark history with violence and foreigners to a degree. And I guess what I like about the first Terrifier a bit more is that it just kind of seems like you're in a sandbox world. Like, hey, Art the Clown's around here somewhere. Just fucking deal with that. There's a killer clown on the loose. Good luck. And Terrifier 2, while it does have a better story, it doesn't really have anything to the story, which almost puts it at a disadvantage to a degree when it comes to just like the pacing of it. Because Terrifier 1 is just like maybe 2 hours in this universe. And it's like, it's going to use those 2 hours just to make you feel like you're claustrophobic and you're trapped, and that like Art's just like any minute, like anything could happen. Like it does happen that the final girl in the would-be final girl in Terrifier 1 just dies halfway through, and it's in a really just unceremonious like scene, like not even that brutal, like she just gets shot in the head. Which is almost like deadpan comedy at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned kind of some of the dark humor that's here. Sometimes, horror movies can turn into that eventually if the series goes on long enough, like the Saw movies. Like I strayed away from the Saw movies for a while because, like I said, it's the whole torture point stuff. But eventually, it just became like, okay, these kills are so ridiculous, and the traps and all this other stuff that what he's doing. It's like, okay, you can't even take this serious. Same thing with like Final Destination.
Oh yeah.
The whole kind of system of the whole Rube Goldberg type situation. Like, okay, you're just here to see how they're going to set up the kill and everything like that and get to it. And sometimes it can be fun to see how it all works out. So, is Terrifier 2 the best out of all these kind of movies? I would say it's a little bit more of a, bigger budget, obviously, with some of these movies. Like, you go back and, watch a lot of them, they get progressively bigger in budget. And look more professional looking. The acting is still, I mean, it's still okay. You know what I mean? It's not too super amazing. It's not,
Right.
the best you'll ever see, but it's still pretty decent here, I would say. And a lot of the effects, I think, look a lot better here. And what he does to this woman in that scene, oh my God.
Well, did you get the dark joke in that at the end? Where Art comes back and literally rubs salt in the wound.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I mean, you get it. If you've seen the movie, you know what happens to that woman in that scene, and that's probably like out of all the movies I've seen, all the movies, that's probably the worst one. That's probably the worst death there in the whole kind of Terrifier series for me. There, but I mean, you mentioned kind of a lot of the dark humor kind of aspects there of it. I mean, would you say Terrifier 2 is the best out of all the movies?
Our best of I say of like what would just be called like grindhouse films, I would say yes. And even also from like a directorial point of view, there's some really impressive shots in this, like the one with just like Sienna in that box, and there's just like a wide shot. It's just a black void around her, but we can so very clearly still see her. Uh, I do also think, uh, opposed to like a lot of these movies, it does have two. Well, you mentioned that I totally agree. The acting isn't amazing. There are two really great leads of Sienna and Art, uh,
Mm.
who, as a like almost as a rivalry, they're very entertaining. But yeah, some scenes with like some extras just almost gets like Sam Raimi Spider-Man levels, where it becomes like comedic, like where the mom came in, she just starts screaming like ah. uh,
Yeah. And Sienna, she's played by Lauren Lavera.
mhm.
So he's played by that actress there. Um, I'd say, I mean, again, it goes into like because these stories of these movies, it just, I mean, the Art the Clown just kind of shows up. I mean, there
Mhm.
really is no real build up to really anything. He just kind of just shows up and starts picking a victim and stalking them, and then
Yeah,
killing people. The friend group of one girl that he, or family of the one girl
yeah.
he gets in particular, invested in. So there really is no build up to usually him coming. Uh,
I do
this
think that.
movie.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I do think that works a bit better than the first movie because one, it's so much shorter, and two, it's just like the cast is so much more limited that it feels
Mm,
a lot like more like oh that like anyone can die in this basically.
yeah. And then in the sequel, you do see some stuff like the family researching like who is Art the Clown,
Mhm.
and so it's a little bit of that stuff there, and then but stuff just kind of just pops up like all of a sudden he's got like a sidekick, like a little girl sidekick and all this other stuff. Then well, I guess we can spoil the movie
Oh,
out there with Terrifier 2, just in case we are gonna maybe discuss some spoilers here with the series. But all of a sudden, the final girl, she turns into Wonder Woman basically at the end, and she's got like that just kind of comes, that just happens, that just kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's like okay, and she's
yeah.
able to defeat Art, and it's like don't know how that really exactly happens, but okay. So yeah, I mean, what do you think about some of those elements in the movie there?
I do think it's like a both. It's interesting seeing art in public more, and it's like we do get to see him interact with more people outside of like just say I don't know 4 people. We get to see how like others just it kind of. I was gonna say like the lore of this series, but almost like the world building to a degree of because it did something kind of interesting with the brother of him like almost like wanting to I thought I was gonna go like, oh, he's gonna be evil and like become the evil art. And like he wants to like do what art did, but like no, it kind of subverts that, which was interesting. I almost thought because you mentioned art had the little sidekick and stuff like that. I almost thought like there was gonna be when Sienna farts art almost like that scene in Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, where Indy is fighting the giant dude and Short Round is fighting the kid in the background. I thought that was almost going to happen with like the kid like tackling the little girl, but there's a lot of fat on Terrifier 2, which I think is kind of the big problem towards it. I feel like in between Terrifier 1 and 2 is like a genuinely amazing horror movie,
Hmm.
but in this it's just I don't know. There's just like there's too much space in between these kills, and that the kills are very brutal, but it's also like, well, okay, give me more. One of my favorite scenes in Terrifier 2 was, I think it actually might be the scariest scene to me, was when Art was in that costume shop and
Mm.
he meets Sienna and he does not touch her. And he's just like right there and he knows he's making her uncomfortable. And you just get to see him. Well, you also get to see David Howard Thornton just like show like what a great character actor he is, of just like kind of like how he's both like very playful but also very like he's taking a lot of fun and just tormenting this girl without her even like being able to do anything basically at that moment.
Mm. Yeah. And and yeah, the anticipation of what he's gonna do
Mm.
is always, I think, very terrifying there. So David Howard Thornton, does a good job at that, playing that. And there's a bad resolution of that scene with the shop owner there.
Oh yeah.
You know, bad outcome from him. But I mean, compared to some other people that gets it in the movie, I mean, you could say he gets lucky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like the mom in the movie, like she kind of gets lucky. I mean, at least it's over pretty quick.
Mhm.
Um, so going back real quick to a lot of the very first one, All Hallows Eve, which kind of kicked everything off, which came out over a decade ago.
Yeah.
What do you notice about this movie, and compared to kind of the rest ones that is kind of the franchise continues to grow here?
One, I don't think they really knew what art really what his characterization was as much, as well as like kind of the world in that. Because I believe originally all him and that technically isn't Art's first appearance. There's like a very short movie, but that's just basically the stuff we see on the screen in this.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it, and it's like it's just not as effective when you can't really see the actors like his jaw and like how he's able to express himself. And I can see it going from just like almost wanting to ground art a bit more in reality, because now he doesn't really use magic, or he does like teleport to a degree, but it's like it's more like slash reporting. Like you can possibly explain it with something else, but here's like Art's a somewhat supernatural being, but he also has guns, and he also has knives, and he also has uh, like a bunch of very personal tools, and you could possibly fight him, but he is very strong. uh,
Mm.
yeah, I,
Uh,
you did probably see like the kids' heads in that. They look
yeah.
completely trash compared to the other practical effects that come later on. It just
Yeah.
yeah, it almost looks like dolls.
Yeah, there's some scenes, again, this goes with, like, the movie's kinda getting increasing and then getting a bigger budget. There's, like, one scene where, Art's in, like, in a pizza shop, and then he comes back and kills the owners of the pizza shop, and then he cuts off one dude's hand, and you could tell, like, that just looked really super
Yeah.
fake. I mean, you know what I mean? All that stuff, that looked kinda really bad. But like you said, they didn't really know exactly what to do
Mhm.
with the character yet. Kinda what is he and what they kinda had on their hands there, which was kind of interesting to go back, because this was my first time seeing it, and also first time going and seeing All Hallows Eve 2 as well. Yeah, like you said, the kid's head in All Hallows Eve 1, that just again, that looked really kind of
Yeah.
super fake. The actress from that one, though, All Hallows Eve, eventually she showed back up because she was the reporter in the first Terrifier movie. She showed back up again.
I do like
uh,
that though, like how almost like the first few Halloween movies of like Halloween 2 takes directly after the night of Halloween 1, and like there is a continuity to a degree, but it's not gonna like kind of rub it in your face. It's more like,
mm,
well, we're having fun.
yeah. And I'm talking about the redhead actress. She's the I guess, what, babysitter, or she's like the mother? I think babysitter, right? Just the babysitter.
Yeah, yeah, it's the babysitter, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, she's just the babysitter there. So she shows back up, and she's the reporter there, and the interviewer in the first one. Um, Thoughts on All Hallows Eve too?
Uh it's just not a ton of thoughts. Kind of the same thing as All Hallows Eve 1. Uh it's you could definitely tell he's like growing more ambitious and stuff, but it is almost like Trick or Treat? Have you seen that movie with the
Anthology movie? Yeah.
yeah, it's this is kind of like that. And uh but I don't know. The first two, like it's kind of like finding your footing as an indie director. So
Mm, okay. I'm just thinking, kind of watching this and how, because thinking about the time periods in which these came out. Like the first one came out in 2013, and this All Hallows Eve 2. When did this one come out? Let me see.
uh,
Uh, I believe the second one came out 2015.
okay.
And I'm trying to think, like, what was really kind of the bigger horror movies at the time, and whether or not a lot of inspiration. Because at the time, let's see, 2013. What was kind of out there? I know Paranormal Activity. The Paranormal
Well, yeah, that
Activity.
was the big thing, like the ghost stuff.
Yeah, a lot of the ghost stuff was there. Paranormal Activity was kind of hot at the time, early to like late 2000s to mid 2010s. That was kind of hot right there.
Oh, the Evil Dead remake came out.
Evil
Yeah,
Dead remake. Okay, that was
Carrie
out at
remake. Yeah, a lot of remakes. It looks like, to be honest.
Okay. So I wonder, I'd be interested to talk to the director there, get like kind of a lot of his,
Mm.
inspirations there. Do you know a lot of inspirations that the director had for these movies? Like what kind of inspired him?
I believe just like kind of standard, uh, just like kind of. I believe I saw an interview of him like taking inspiration from like the the original Halloween with oh my god,
John Carpenter?
John Carpenter. Yeah, of just taking it in a more very basic setting. I do also know, however, uh, I found this out more recently that originally Terrifier was technically a Kickstarter film. However, it was not able to meet its end goal, but he was still able to do it anyway. So, which is a very cool thing for him. And yeah, I'm glad he did get, kind of like he didn't really get kind of put off by that. He's like, no, I can still work with what I got. I do also remember in that video him saying, I'm going to have to find a way to beat this scene. And it's the scene of like the woman with all the cut off limbs and like with all the stuff like carved into her of like all the
Yeah.
like I think it was like bitch and slut and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's another thing about these movies, which I do think the director has heard of, because I remember after Terrifier 1 came out, there was, especially in like the big horror fan community, there was kind of a split of people who were like, oh, I get this, I appreciate it, but people who really hated it because the way art would just so brutally kill these women. He did kill guys too, but like with what happens with the women in this is like really bad, especially with that one girl that gets hung upside down.
Yeah.
But and I remember seeing like some stuff like no, I didn't like mean it to be like a sexist thing, but like I'm sure he did kind of get all this places like, well, I still want to make my intense horror movie next time, but I just don't want to like kill men or anything like that. So, and he does want like a strong, he does want like a final girl, and which I have seen some mixed thoughts on because the first one kind of subverts the whole final girl thing very brutally. And I mean, there is technically a final girl, but she, what happens to her face. And in Terrifier 2, there's still, if anything, there's more brutal violence towards some of these women. But you can make the argument it's less like almost gender targeted, if that makes sense. Like he's not going anything that would like kind of make you cross your legs.
And the director of this got to mention Damien Leone. He's the director.
Yes.
Here, these movies. I wonder if that was a big point of contention. Yeah, a lot of the violence here, because it is, like I said, is pretty brutal. It's not for definitely the weak-hearted or weak stomach there, because you'll see a lot of different kind of brutal kills there of this stuff. So depends if you're if you can kind of stomach that stuff or not. I think going back looking at all these movies. I could see definitely the huge complaints with it, and where people have those big issues with it. It would, and because of those reasons, it definitely wouldn't be in my top like favorite horror movies or anything like that. I do appreciate the performance of Art the Clown, a lot of the physical stuff that goes into it, and a lot of that. So I do appreciate that on that level. Yeah. But it would never be in my like top favorite horror movies or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see the Halloween kind of inspiration in John Carpenter, like I said, very much just stalking the kind of the victim there. You don't know anything really about him. He's just evil incarnate. You know, which is nice.
Yeah,
Would you say All Hallows Eve 2? That's the weakest one. Like you kind of made
probably.
a yeah. Okay.
Uh,
And yeah.
yeah. But yeah, just because saw that scene of just art. I think that's the most effective horror when art is just there. Because when he was there with this big smile and his hands on this, and
Mm,
just smiling like that is just. It wasn't there. It didn't present itself as a jump scare initially, and it was just the size of art just like there is like very scary, and then him lunging at her is like, oh, he's just messing with her basically, is what I think makes art scary a lot of times of like he's clearly having a lot of fun doing this. uh and but that does kind of come into like another complaint I had of like some of the sound effects and music is just so loud. Especially during the kills. It's like, dude, he's like cutting him open from like the inside. I don't need like 1,000 metal clangs at this moment. It might be you might make the arguments there to like overwhelm your senses to make you extra uncomfortable, but like
mm.
it almost makes me not want to watch this scene more. Not like in a oh this is disturbing, more like oh this is hurting my head.
Yeah. Do you think the series will last too much on shock value? You think?
I could definitely see that be an argument, but I do think its practical effects are kind of its main attraction, especially after the first movie. Uh, but for me, I think it matters like how creative it can get, while like not just like kind of rubbing it in your face in a bad way. Like
Mm,
because there was also that intention of like I'm sure you heard our advertisements of Terrifying 2 of like people are throwing up in the theater, people are like
yeah.
losing their
Passing
lunch.
out.
Yeah.
Things like that. Yeah. Huh.
And it got praised by Stephen King and the guy who directed Midnight Mass. Do you know? Uh,
The Netflix show.
yeah.
Mike Flanagan.
Yes. He praised Terrifier 2. It's like this is really fucked up. I love it.
Mm,
uh,
okay.
but yeah, I mm, yeah I do think that if in a weird way I do think it kind of steered away from some of the shock value that like almost all Hell's Eve and the first Terrifier had in the second movie, with just the kills focusing more just like extending someone's pain, but not like uh, oh afterwards you like see like slit or anything carved into their body, because I
Mm,
that's what people a lot of them had a big issue with, or
mm.
kind of sexual nature of art skills in well of that one kill in Terrifier. Uh, but yeah, I can totally understand if people like get tired of it or anything like that.
Mm,
Or
yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. So we're kind of the series, discussing all of it. How would you rank these movies?
uh, probably Terrifier 2 as number one,
Mm,
and then Terrifier 1 down below, and All Hallows Eve, then uh, All Hallows Eve 2,
mm.
stuff like that. Uh, Interestingly, though, enough, art is going to appear in Dead by Daylight. Uh,
Oh,
we got an announcement of that for a month and like a very small like tease. But yeah, I'm excited. uh, I do genuinely think art will be able to like kind of be held in contention as like one of the great like horror movie mascots, like
mm,
Freddy Krueger and Jason. Maybe not like, or even like Jigsaw. Like maybe not like held like the writing of his movies to the same degree, but like no, as a icon, he's amazing.
yeah. Did you ever see the short film Night Circle? That's when you like very, very first appeared back in '08.
Oh yes, that's yeah. I mixed some of that up with Hell's Eve too, uh, as well. I knew it was called something, but like, yeah, he's like a servant in Satan.
Mm, yeah. Because that's the videotape that they're watching
Mhm.
in All Hallows Eve. They popped that in. Yeah. They're watching that. All these different like creatures and stuff that you see that's there. Yeah, I would agree with your ranking. I haven't seen the short film there, the Ninth Circle, that was like 11 minutes long. I haven't seen that.
Mhm.
Um, so I would, yeah, rank Terrifier 2, Terrifier 1, and then All Hallows Eve, and then All Hallows Eve 2. I would kind of go there at the same ranking there as you. And you mentioned like he's going to be in Dead by Daylight, which is the
Mhm.
video game, the horror video game, which various other horror icons show up. Like, you get to play as like Freddy or Ghostface or various different characters like that. Um, so yeah, I mean, doesn't he also have his own Funko Pop now? Is he
I'm
a
sure he
Funko?
does.
I believe he's a Funko Pop or something now. I believe they
Mhm.
make everybody into a Funko Pop,
Yeah.
basically. Any character you can think of, I think they have a Funko Pop of them. But yeah. So he's turning more into like a horror icon there. And I always, like when small kind of movies really kind of blow up and make a bunch of money. Like last year seemed like the year for because the same thing happened to Barbarian.
Yes. Yeah.
That happened too with that film. Like this got word of mouth, and that kept growing and growing, and that had a relatively small budget. Also, the same thing kind of happened with, I guess, X and Pearl. Really, it was just word of mouth just
Mhm.
grew about those movies, and people just went to go see them. So
And
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. This year, a movie made by two YouTubers who, interestingly enough, did a horror short of like Ronald McDonald,
Mm,
made the movie Talk to Me, which has
yeah.
been one of my favorite movies in years. Horror, at least.
Yeah. Raka Raka, yeah, they did Talk to Me, yeah, which I very much liked as well. I like that movie quite a bit. Yeah. So our rating system here for the afternoon tune. So our highest you can give something is This Is Cinema. Our lowest is Waste of Fucking Film. So the way that kind of scaling works. So after This Is Cinema, kind of below that is Peak, and below that is a Tune In. Below that is a Stream It. And kind of the lower ratings you can give something is like Burn It, or a Skip It slash a Tune Out. So with the best Terrifier movie, you mentioned Terrifier 2, what would you give that? What would be your rating for that?
I stream it to most people, just the average group. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, as well as
Hmm.
like just general quality from like the analytical side of my brain. Uh,
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah, and I say the worst Hell's Eve stuff would just be like just skip it. Like it's just not even like that bad. It's just like eh.
Yeah. 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 I kind of, yeah, I could see that. I forgot what I gave Terrifier 2 when I reviewed it. I had to go back and look at the overview. I actually forgot what I gave it. I think I did give it like maybe like a high Stream It, like a low Tune In, something like that.
Yeah.
When I did see it, like I think I said even in the review, like it's not going to be for everybody, so it depends on your style and taste there. We're really dependent on that. But yeah, from what I see, it's like okay, yeah. Because I had heard all the things going into it. That's what kind of helped the movie blow up. Is just the word of mouth, and like you said, the
Oh yeah.
titles of like people are passing out and throwing up. This is the most horrifying movie ever made, and
Mhm.
you had people like Mike Flanagan come out and praise it. All these other various people, so that also helped it grow, which was nice. So yeah, that was the Terrifier series.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you want to get into also discussing Final Girls as well,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes. Because Terrifier 2 has the final girl that, while a bit generic, I think is carried very well by the performance and and some of the minor characterization we get of kind of just Sienna, like having a more artistic side, but also just like how much shit she gets put through, which I kind of find trouble with a lot of modern final girls of like the final girl in the new Halloween movie. I don't even remember her name, or the final girl in the Texas Chainsaw, like the new remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre or American Horror Story, stuff like that. Like they're almost so bland that it's just like they come off as like either hard to root for or like kind of annoying.
Mm. Yeah, and this is Sienna right here. This is the final girl of Terrifier 2. Let me get that shot of her because she's got her like Halloween costume on here. I'm trying to wait for that shot in the trailer here to pause on. That's really good here. Uh, yeah, I mean, you know, in a recent kind of crop, I mean, when you talk about like best final girls, kind of going on, people. Oh, here's the shot right here, her in
Yeah.
her Halloween costume right there. Which I guess she's supposed to be like a
Angel,
warrior princess, I guess is kind of the look,
kind of.
kind of the look there. Yeah, you mentioned so Halloween, they did a continuation of Halloween
Yeah.
movies, and then I mean, I still think the final girl was still Laurie Strode of those
Yeah,
movies, older Jamie Lee Curtis.
Right. I meant like the new like teenage girl and stuff like that. I don't even
like her daughter,
her granddaughter. Yeah.
her granddaughter in it. Who, I'm blanking on her name too at the moment. I'm blanking on her name, what it was, but I still think overall, I mean, even though her daughter is kind of granddaughter is, I still think it was still just about, you know, Laurie Strode basically there. Even though in the second one of like the reboot Halloween movies, they kind of sideline Jamie Lee Curtis a lot, and I'm like, why would you do that when you focus so heavily on her in the reboot there? Then you mentioned also who was it also Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Netflix one,
Yeah.
which was pretty bad. I was like, yeah, that one was pretty awful.
Odd political commentary as well.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I got a little bit of the tone that they were going for of it. I guess maybe they were trying to make it more like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, I guess, is what the director was trying to do.
There's no chainsaw fight.
You know, because in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, it's such a departure from the first one. Because in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, it's more just a straight comedy, more than what the first one is.
Yeah.
And it's like almost even the director, Toby Hooper, of Texas Chainsaw Massacre was like, okay, I can't recreate that again. You know, I mean, I got to go something completely different here. So let's kind of shift it to a whole other direction here. But I mean, yeah, that Netflix one, I think that ended up on my worst of list when that movie came out. It was like the worst of the year when that came out. That came out what?
2020.
That came out last year. That came out
last year. Yeah. Okay.
That was on my worst of list. Yeah.
Yeah, I can buy that.
So mentioning some kind of recent Final Girls that I really liked. Did you ever see the movie actually called The Final Girls? Did you ever see that movie?
Oh no, I have not.
It's a very good movie. It's with Tessa Farmiga, who's she's the sister of Via Farmiga. Via Farmiga, who was in The Departed. She's in the Conjuring movies. Tessa Farmiga. She's actually going to be in. She's actually in the Nun movies, which is part of the Conjuring universe. She's in American Horror Story. If you ever seen that, she was part of like the very first season of that show. She was the daughter of. What's that actor's name? Dylan Mulvaney, I think is his name.
Yeah.
I know he always gets confused with Dylan Maroney, and then they always get confused with each other, the names. But she was in that, and she also showed up in also The Covenant, which season of American Horror Story. So she was in that. So yeah, you have that. Have you ever seen the movie The Final Girls?
No, I have not. Actually, recently, because I wanted to watch Terrifier 2 last night for just this. I used a subscription for like I forgot what it's called, but like Slasher Stream or something like that. And actually that the poster for that did show up. And
okay.
Yeah, I'm always nervous approaching movies like that, of like horror movies that try to be like kind of meta analytical, but like because a lot of them feel like they haven't gone past the 90s, past Scream, like past what Scream talked about. And that's it's kind of a flaw for me. But yeah, I'll check it out then. I think one of my favorite Final Girls in the last few years, well, actually last year as well, was Tess from Barbarian, the main girl in that.
Yeah,
she was cool. I think I like her because she feels like an actual, adult who makes all the right choices in the scenario, and she's put in a few situations where like she technically does everything right, but she still gets in trouble. and it's not really oh, the plot demanded this. It's more like, oh no, this is an awful situation. She's trying to do her best at this, and like trying to give some people the benefit of the doubt, which she should, but others, like when she just should have kind of left them. And I think that also works because that movie does also have a message of like it does have a very obvious theme of like like men
Men
sexually,
ain't shit.
yeah, of like them the hashtag Me Too movement of like how men kind of like pressuring some women into sex or like trust and stuff like that with some of the characters.
Mm.
Yeah, and I do feel like the thing for Final Girls for me is that like to a degree you have to eat shit. Like you have to actually eat shit and feel like you might die at any moment. Because that's what makes kind of your win a bit more satisfactory. I get why some people didn't like that because of Terrifier 2. She does kind of come back. But for me, when there's just that scene of like her Sienna on the ground, just Art just kicking her in the face, it's just like, oh, that looks rough.
Yeah. And actually Barbarian recently, because it was just it was just kind of on streaming, and actually recently got a
Yeah.
DVD release.
Oh.
So it got a DVD release, I think. Or did it? Yeah, I think it did. Let me look it up just to make sure. But you know, sometimes these movies they get put on streaming and you never hear about them getting put on DVD. Just recently, they just did that with the Marvel shows like WandaVision. They did that with where they did an actual, you can buy a physical
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so Barbarian says DVD and Blu-ray release date not announced. So it's not announced yet. So that's the one that people were waiting for a physical release on. But it's on Hulu right now. So if you have Hulu, you can watch it. If you
Is it
have
still on HBO, or did that guy delete it when he deleted like a bunch of stuff?
let me see here. Yeah, it's on. It still says it's on HBO Max or Max.
It survived the David Zaslav snap of like half of your favorite shows and movies will be gone from HBO.
Yeah. And yeah, I mentioned Final Girls. Actually, I forgot. So I looked up the date. That movie was a while ago. That movie was in 2015. That movie was 8 years ago. So that was a while ago when that movie came out. Wow, I didn't know it was that long ago. Did you ever see the movie Ready or Not?
Yes, I did.
I think she's very good in that movie. And also, so you have Samora Weaving, who was in that, who just recently she showed up in the Scream movie. It was Scream 6. She was also in Babylon very recently, where she was in that movie with Margot Robbie, just to show people we're not the same person. Like, we're two different people. You know what I mean? We're not the same person there. And then so in Ready or Not, that's the whole thing about this woman who, is with this guy. She marries into a rich family, and then she kind of goes to meet the family before the wedding, and realizes the family is fucked up, as all rich people are portrayed in horror movies are. And then, she has to fight to defend herself to survive through the night. That I think is very good. What do you think about Ready or Not?
I thought it was a fun movie, especially also like you totally get what the movie's saying like from the beginning, because the whole like, oh, we have to sacrifice her, but not for like a gay, like not for a lip service reason. Almost like, oh no, these are like the actual politics and lore of this world and stuff. Have you seen The Hunt? It almost reminds me of like a better version of that to a degree.
That's another good example too.
Yeah.
The Hunt. Yeah,
I really liked her performance in that. The blonde woman. I don't remember her name.
Betty Gilpin.
Betty Gilpin. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, there was a whole lot of controversy when The Hunt came out, of people going like it I think it was people like Trump saying that it was hating against like right-wing people, and it was saying that kill all the right-wing people and everything like that, and we should ban the movie. And then if you actually see the movie, like they were doing a lot of trolling. And so you actually go see the movie, it's actually talking about both sides of kind of people there.
You could make the argument that movie kind of has a more conservative leaning. I believe the writers left wing, but like just with the context of the movie and some like what the characters are doing, like, yeah, you can make the argument this is a conservative friendly movie.
Yeah. And yeah, kind of some kind of aspects there. Yeah, but yeah, The Hunt. Yeah, I thought that was a good type of, in the way kind of I haven't seen a movie in a minute, but I remember the opening of it where you see kind of all these people there
Mm,
because it's all about the premise of the movie is that a bunch of rich people who a lot of the rich people again, rich people fucked up again.
yeah.
Um, is that a lot of the rich people seem to be like very white, liberal, rich people. And they gather all these people, put them on a preservation and hunt them.
Mhm.
And you see kind of like the camera going to all these different people, thinking like they're going to be the lead of the movie or this person's going to be the lead of the movie, and then instantly they just die. Like
Die.
it has, and it has like the dude. Did you ever see Smallville?
Yeah, yeah. I
It
saw
has
some of it.
it has the guy who played Arrow in that, like the very first Arrow.
Oh,
Justin Hartley, I think is his name.
yeah. I saw that Justice League episode.
Yeah, where they did like low budget Justice League, you know what I mean? Where they had their street clothes on, like, hey, this is the best we can do for
Yeah,
TV.
it's Clark
Uh
just blending in the normal environment by wearing his high school jacket.
yeah. Yeah, so he was in The Hunt, and then like you think like, he's planning things out, he's gonna be the big leader in the movie, then he steps on a landmine, then boom,
Yeah,
he turns into chunks
yeah.
there.
Like first 5 minutes.
So I kind of like that. I kind of like that kind of setup there of
Have you
everything.
seen? This is kind of a horror classic that I recommend a lot of people watch. Of uh, I almost forgot. Oh yeah, The Legend of Leslie Vernon. No, The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
I'm not too familiar with that one. No.
Well, The Rise of Leslie Vernon is about, it's a world where every horror, well, not every, but like the most notable horror icons are implied to be real. Because the first 5 minutes it talks about, oh, there's Freddy Krueger, there's Jason on Lake Street, there's Michael Myers, stuff like that. But it follows a uh, documentary crew who are interviewing Leslie Vernon, who is wanting to be the next big, horror movie slasher. And we get to see, it's kind of a love letter to all this horror movie like tropes and like stuff like that and characters. And you see Leslie like when you first meet him, he's like training and stuff. He's like, I gotta do a ton of cardio because all those guys seem like they're just walking when they're sprinting like hell. And we see Leslie Vernon's idea of the fact that the way he wants to be remembered is that he needs a final girl and he has to select them out. And he's like, oh, I need to find this girl, the virgin. And it's a horror movie. It's a slasher movie where like the slasher is almost the secondary protagonist. uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, I would recommend people watching it. It's a fun ride.
That sounds pretty
Yeah.
interesting, actually. That sounds like a very interesting kind of concept there. Yeah. Newer horror, Happy Death Day, I think also has a really
Oh
good one
yeah,
too.
yeah.
And they're making a third one, aren't they? Happy Death Day.
I'd be sure. I did see also recently Freaky, is it, or it's the Vince Vaughn ones by the people who did Happy Death Day. It's a parody on Freaky Friday of like the serial killer and the
Oh,
girl switching bodies.
yeah, I think it's called just Freaky, right?
Yeah, Freaky. Yeah. It kind of has a nice message about like, self-worth and stuff. Uh
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't think I saw that one. I know I because I think maybe my co-host reviewed it.
mhm.
I don't think I saw it. That was the movie with, you can say, Vince Vaughn, Catherine Newton, who was in it. Who Catherine
Mhm.
Newton we just saw in the Ant Man movie. She was Cassie Lang in Ant Man 3. She was in that. Um,
I didn't see
yeah.
it.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think you ain't really missing too much
No.
then. She was also in Detective Pikachu. She was also in that
Oh.
one. She was in Blockers too, which, yeah, Blockers is kind of funny. I kind of like that. It's kind of a funny movie there.
Mhm.
But yeah, Catherine Newton, yeah, she was in that. Have you ever seen You're Next?
Sounds familiar. Explain the plot. I might have seen it.
Um, I think it's another case. I think it's kind of like Ready or Not, where this girl kind of goes with her boyfriend. It's like family reunion type thing. Turns out his family fucked up. and
Hmm.
then his family basically tries to hunt her down because they're trying to like sacrifice her. It's very actually kind of, I think, very very similar to, yeah, very much to the premise of Ready or Not.
Hmm.
But the woman in that, turns out she's got all these different skills and survival skills, all this other stuff. Erin Harris was the character there, in Your Next. And yeah, she ends up, kind of picking off the family kind of one by one.
Yeah.
There, what to you kind of makes a good final girl there?
I think vulnerability and relatability, which I think is just it's a harder thing for people to grasp than uh, people think. Because with movies like uh, about just like your generic slasher schlock that no one watches, of like, I feel like you see the main girl, you're like, oh, she's gonna live. She's a protective shield around her, and like you're just basically in this girl's world. Like the Leatherface, the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, of like those two girls, of like, oh, I know which one of you is gonna live, and it's like kind of very obnoxious just throughout the thing, and it feels like adults trying to relate to youth, and sometimes they do it by making an outsider girl, but it feels very cheap. This is going to be a very weird analogy, but have you seen Modern Family,
No.
the sitcom? Well, in it, there's Alex. She's the nerdy outcast girl, but in that
Uh,
like in that series, she's like, a very attractive young woman, especially as it goes on and stuff like that. But it's also like, this is also what a writer in their 40s thinks a nerdy girl would sound like, of like, oh, I don't understand Star Wars or stuff like that. I'm into science. I love my science books. Like, I don't even know like indie nerd stuff. I only know science. It's kind of like that, of just like kind of not hitting the right vibes with people.
mm,
Uh, I think is a hard thing to do to make usually people in their early 20s to seem like teenagers. I think Talk to Me did a very very good job uh,
mm,
with that, because they all seem uh, kind of like your average dumb teenagers. Uh,
yeah. And I don't know. When I looked at the IMDb for that movie and looked at the actors, I think that was kind of some of their first
mm,
acting gig was this, which was, I mean, kind of impressive. I mean, if
yeah.
that's the case, like if this was like their first ever movie that they've been in, because I was like, wow, they did a really great job, especially the scenes where they get possessed
Oh
and
yeah.
the main girl too. I mean, she has to go
Neat.
through so many different
Mhm.
emotions in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that was kind of very impressive
Yeah.
there.
Actually, I
Uh,
have a friend in Australia that I. This is a very very light spoiler, but in it, there's a kangaroo like on the road dead.
mm,
And I was talking to my friend Jen about that. She lives in Australia. I'm like, is that like unusual or not? Or she's like, we see squirrels on American TV the same way you guys see kangaroos. Of like, there's the animal that's not in our country. uh, but yeah, it was very well performed. And I'm not usually into possession movies because I feel like they're kind of like, they can come off as silly to me to a degree.
mm.
But here, the way like each possession is just so different, and what's genuine, what's screwing with you, and just kind of the how visceral some of the sound effects get, especially with like that the scene at that girl's house. I'm not gonna say anything, but it's like, wow, that was tough.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal. That
Speak,
scene. I
yeah. Speaking of another final girl, from the 2013 uh, Evil Dead remake, I actually liked her quite a bit, I like that movie more than most.
Yeah, and that was the actress who was in that. What was her name? It was Jane Levy. Jane
Mhm.
Levy, who was also in Don't Breathe. She was also in that horror movie there. If people
Ugh.
remember, you don't like Don't Breathe?
No, I like that, but like I remember that scene. I just think of that with the
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Hey, real quick, did you hold it there? Greninja Killer. There, he says that movie is overrated. What movie you talking about there? I don't know if you know Greninja Killer at all. I don't know if maybe somebody
You're
you know.
next, I think. Was that what you're talking about, Great Ninja?
Yeah, I don't know if
Ah,
I wonder,
shucks.
maybe they'll come back to say what movie it was. But yeah, Jane Levy, she was in that. And yeah, I like the Evil Dead remake, reboot, requel,
Mhm.
reimagining, revision,
Yeah,
I
like a
mean, yeah, whatever
soft
you want to
reboot.
call,
Yeah,
yeah, whatever you want
some
to
people
call
call
it.
it.
Yeah, and this Evil Dead Rise that came out this year, I don't know. I guess that's a
I
sequel, reboot,
it's
remake.
kind of the both.
Yeah,
Uh, it almost sticks closer to the original Evil Dead setup to a degree,
yeah,
despite a different location. But I liked Talk to Me like more than the Evil Dead Rise,
yeah.
which yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Talk to Me felt. I mean, it felt fresh. I mean,
Mhm.
as opposed to Evil Dead Rise, yeah, it felt fresh, which I give it credit for. What did you like about Jane Levy and the Evil Dead 2013?
I like kind of his her almost taking more action, but like still like obviously just being scared from the start of there's no topping Bruce Campbell. There's no topping Bruce Campbell who's just like instantly likable and all that stuff. But like I don't know, just kind of the way she went through everything, just like kind of grudged along of just like how exhausted she felt at the end, where she just has that chainsaw in her hand. It's like uh, uh, yeah. Oh boy. But I don't remember her name. But she kind of reminded me of the final girl from Freddy versus Jason, even though that movie's kind of not that scary at the end. Of
Freddy versus Jason. They had the blonde girl, right?
yeah,
What was her name? I haven't seen her in a minute. The actress name was Monica Kenyon.
yeah, well, Laurie Campbell. Oh, that's her
Uh,
name.
Lori Campbell, that was the character's name there.
Yeah,
Yeah. And the actress Monica. Yeah, I haven't seen her in a minute.
yeah.
Since Freddy versus Jason there. Um yeah, and I just remember that movie. Yeah, Freddy versus Jason. Yeah, very comical movie there.
Yeah.
And I think Bruce Campbell wasn't he originally supposed to be in that?
It
It was
was
supposed to be
I think it was supposed to be like a four-way crossover between like the Cenobite and Ash Williams and Freddie and Jason. Uh,
yeah. Which that's kind of interesting there. But it's if you've never seen Freddy versus Jason, people, yeah,
it's
that's a
fun.
fun movie.
You
I
never
think you
see. There's no other movie where Freddy Krueger does elbow drops on Jason.
yeah, I think it's right up there with like Jason X. You know what I
hmm
mean?
hmm
Even though Jason X is way more stupid than I
Yeah,
think Freddy
yeah.
versus
I do
Jason.
think to a degree, Freddy vs. Jason almost it does know what it is of like it does have fun with it, but it does kind of do some exploration into Freddy and Jason, like kind of the horror. I do think there's some horror, especially with like the brother in the bathtub and like his slit wrists and stuff like that. And we
Mhm.
see kind of Jason's mind of we see the surface level of just like Jason just dragging dead bodies for eternity, basically, of like kind of this is like his role now as like a zombie is like he just kills people that comes on his land. And but we also see like, oh, inside uh Jason, there is also a severely abused and bullied child, which is kind of a victim of circumstance, which is why
Yeah.
the way he is. And Freddy's also like really, even for Freddy standards, he's really nasty in those movies
Mm.
of him just like mocking young Jason and the way he kills some of his victims, especially like that one girl with the blade. Well, what he was about to do with Lori at the end. Uh,
Mm.
so yeah, it has one of my favorite portrayals of Freddy, and obviously Robert Englund's having a ton of fun. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Talked about a lot of newer Final Girls. Who do you think are some of the OGs? Who would be on the Mount Rushmore of Final Girls there?
Laurie Campbell, not Laurie Campbell,
Laurie
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 from
Strode.
from Halloween. Uh, I don't remember her name, but from the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and how she just
Sally.
barely Sally, yeah, and how she just barely gets away, and like she just there's like so many fake outs that you feel exhausted just watching her throughout the movie, and like the moment she just like finally gets away, it's like, oh, this is a relief. Like, and she just like laughs in exhaustion. Like she's not crazy, but it's like, oh, I like this was just like I can't believe I did this.
Yeah, no, I think she a little bit. I mean, after
A
going through
little,
that,
maybe a little.
yeah, I think she kind of lost a little bit, which is understandable there. I mean, going through something like that, yeah. Who else you got?
Nancy's neat from the first Nightmare on Elm Street. Though it does do that thing where uh, the sequel kills her. uh, uh,
Which Nightmare on Elm Street did she die? Because she showed back up in Dream Warriors.
four?
Um,
No.
I think it was a New Nightmare.
Mhm.
I think it was New
Yeah.
Nightmare.
I think it might have been the same one where Jesse got killed. Or, yeah.
Maybe I try to remember. Yeah, which one she died in. But yeah. So yeah, Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street. Okay.
Trying to think. So that is kind of a thing with final girls of kind of wanting to uh, almost make them kind of a semi-generic character to put your own shoes in. That's kind of hard to differentiate them as it goes on. Yeah, a lot of my favorite horror movies kind of ends with everyone dead.
Right. Got one more slot left there.
Yeah, this might be a weird thing, but like I might be cheating, but I did really like Jade from King Kong, like in all her iterations of
Mm.
especially E. Even though it's kind of in between of like the Peter Jackson stuff of like, despite everything of like just kind of how much of a monster, Kong is. He's still an animal. And he still has sympathy,
Mm.
and yeah, it's kind of tough. Not sure if that says something about me, but
Yeah. Let's see. Well, when you do kind of a Mount Rushmore here, you're thinking about people who are very instrumental, very much the foundation, you know what I mean, for a lot of final girls that we see today here, building off the backs of them, like we
Mhm.
mentioned, like some of the newer ones, like we mentioned the character from You're Next or Ready or Not or Barbarian
Yeah.
or, movies like that, or even in the new Evil Dead Rise movie there. I would say I think Ripley from Alien would
Oh,
be
of course, Ripley. Duh.
um which that is a horror movie there. Sarah Connor from Terminator, I think that's also like a sci-fi action horror movie.
Mhm.
It's a lot of different genres there. That and then the transformation of that character from Terminator 1, Terminator 2, people always
Mhm.
praise that with Linda Hamilton. Very shame what they did with her in the newest Terminator movie. Like that
Yeah.
should have been her Halloween 2018 type moment
Yeah.
there where she kind of came back.
Did that come out before or after Halloween 2018?
That came out after
Okay.
Terminator. What was it called? Dark Fate, I think it
Yes.
was called. Yeah, so it came out after Halloween
Yeah.
2018. There, actually 1 year after
Yeah.
2019. Uh,
The girl from Prey. I think the character's name starts with an N. Her name is like Amber something in real life.
oh
Uh,
yes, yeah, Amber Mid Thunder. Mid
yes.
Thunder.
Yes.
Who she was in an episode of, I don't know if you watch Reservation Dogs. That's a very good
Oh
show.
yeah. Yeah.
She was just
Yeah.
in the second
Sounds.
season of that
Mhm.
show. She gets people say she looks a lot like Aubrey Plaza. She looks a lot like her.
I can see it a bit.
Uh, yeah, but Prey is a good one. I forgot to mention Prey. Prey was a real surprise kind of movie, which is also on Hulu. People can check it. That was a Hulu
Mhm.
original movie that came out there that didn't get a theater release
Yeah.
there. So yeah, so I have two slots left. I mentioned Ripley. I mentioned Sarah Connor. You mentioned Sally from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I like Sally a lot. I think Sally is very good as far as like. I mean, I've never seen a person more scared in a horror movie in
Yeah.
my entire life. Um, and so I think, I mean, when you just talk about like performance, I mean, like, wow. I mean, and I think I heard like the actress really did go through a lot of
Yeah. Heat stroke.
trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, filming it and everything like that. Very much like what's her name from The Shining.
Also Sally, but the actress I know.
I forgot. I'm blanking on the woman's name
Yeah.
from The Shining. But yeah, yeah, I'm blanking on her name.
Oh, Shelley Duvall.
Shelley
Yeah.
Duvall there. But I would kind of maybe more go with, instead of putting Sally on there. I think I would probably go with Sydney Prescott, Nev
Mm.
Campbell.
Mm.
And what Scream did, and when we talked about Scream, when we did like a retro review of the very first Scream, very revolutionary. It at the time when it came out and all the way in. I think the first Scream movie came out in 1994. Actually, 1996 it came out. The very first Scream movie, and the whole thing of like meta, changing up what we traditionally saw, the final girl type look
Mhm.
there, because at the time, very much, kind of the more the final girl kind of looked more like, or the typical girl in horror movies more looked like Rose McGowan, who we see, not Rose McGowan, but Drew Barrymore, who we see die early on
Mhm.
in the Scream movie there. So a very good thing they did there with her and her character, and she still alive. The character Sidney Prescott
Yeah.
still kicking. And then another final girl that's still kicking, still around is Laurie Strode.
Yeah. I mean,
Halloween.
yeah, in the new timeline. I think in the original timeline, Michael actually killed her.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that
uh,
was in Halloween. Which one? Which one was that again?
the new
Halloween.
one, Halloween Kills, or
No, she because the one you mentioned that she dies, that was Halloween.
oh,
I forget.
H2O. Is that
Yeah,
it? It might be.
maybe.
There's a
There's so
lot
many
of them.
different. There's a lot of them, but in the new timeline of Halloween movies, she does actually live.
Yeah, yeah,
In the new ones, there, the daughter, her daughter dies. Judy
yeah.
Greer, her daughter dies, but she ends
Which
up
I thought
living.
was interesting. Like, oh wow, they killed her. I didn't expect that. I thought she would just be like in recovery. uh,
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 uh, which
I actually didn't see it, but didn't Nope have a final girl? Uh,
Nope. Kiki Palmer. Yeah,
yeah,
she was. Yeah. She was very good. Thank you for bringing up Nope. Thank you
yeah,
for that. Nope, which was the Jordan Peele movie. There, I thought Kiki Palmer was very good in Nope.
yeah. She's
I
great.
thought. I kind of wanted to see her get nominated for Nope. Honestly, because it was kind of like that year that it also came out. What, last year? Nope.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, it was because I thought for best actress, because it was kind of a weak year to me for best actress last year. You had like Ana de Armas for Blonde that was in there, which I hated that movie. I did not like Blonde.
yeah,
So I thought like, yeah, it was kind of a weak year for best actress for me.
yeah. And you know what? I get why a lot of people like her. She's not my favorite, but like recent memory of The Menu with Anya Taylor Joy, and that's
Ah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, Anna Taylor Joy. Yeah, she was in the menu. Anna Taylor Joy. She's, I think, the new pretty much it girl. I would say
kind
probably
of
right. Yeah, she's
yeah.
blowing up. She does like a good mix of like indie stuff plus little mainstream stuff. She's been in a ton of stuff that people seen, like the Northman. She was in, like you mentioned, the Menu, Last Night in Soho. She was in the Netflix show that blew up, The Queen's Gambit.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Menu is also another. I love the Menu. I thought the Menu was
Yeah,
really good.
it was one of the funniest movies last year, which was shocking to me.
Yeah,
Uh,
great performance by Ray Fiennes in there
oh my
too.
god, amazing! Just very intense. And I've been there as like just like you just want to like yell at a certain customer or something like after doing so much work, and they're like, I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean his line delivery in that movie is fantastic, and Ray Fiennes. I remember the scene where he's questioning one of the guests about like the meal that he gave them at
Oh
one
yeah,
particular night, and he said it was. I think he said it was
halibut,
halibut. You
rare
donkey!
spa, fucking halibut.
He called it a
Yeah,
donkey. It's like Jesus Christ.
yeah, it was just
Uh,
a light parody on like Gordon Ramsay as culture. Uh, though also speaking of Anya Taylor Joy, wasn't she in The Witch?
yes, she was in The
Yeah,
Witches.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I don't think she was the final girl of that, but
well, she was the only member of the family who lived. I'm missing.
oh, I thought maybe it's been a while since I've seen The Witch.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
She lived deliciously at the end. Yeah, she took the deal. She's like, "Fuck this! I'll take the deal."
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. It's not too many. I do remember watching a thing on Scream Queens about one of the kind of implications of a final girl on a male character, Jesse Walsh. Because I'm not sure if you know this, but this is kind of infamous now. Of like, at the time, the director did not know that his actor and writers were gay. However, the writers knew and the actors knew, and they made kind of a very queer coded movie, which is about kind of like the fear of being outed or like the fear of just general like homophobia and like accepting your own identity, which you could totally see now because it's kind of obvious. But like Jesse Walsh is a lot more sensitive, and he's a lot more like uh, not as masculine as you'd expect, like I say, a jock character, and he lives towards the end, which the usually it's a final girl, especially in Nightmare on Elm Street movies. So
Yeah. Yeah. Jesse Walsh, she was the character that you mentioned, yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street. Huh, I'd never heard that before.
oh yeah,
Very interesting. Yeah. And yeah, you mentioned it's always like final girl, never really too much final guy.
Mhm.
Typically too much.
You
And
posted it actually recently, but like I was kind of sad of the They Them movie, the horror movie that came out.
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. He's having fun at least, but it's like it's cool to have a movie with like a main queer cast, especially a horror movie. But it was just boring, and I think the most interesting thing about it was the actor of I don't remember the character's name, but they're like a non-binary kid,
Mhm.
and they're like, oh, you're biologically a male, so you go with the boys and stuff like that. And there was some interesting uh, talk about that. And I would hope that like we can get to like like a horror movie where we could have more of a commentary on stuff like that, because you don't see
Mhm.
that a ton in horror movies.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they don't really do this in Evil Dead Rise with her kids in it, but it seems like one of the kids maybe is like
Okay,
uh
or
mm, maybe yeah, gay or
yeah.
somewhat I don't think trans, but not trans, but
Hmm. Oh wait,
yeah.
I heard something about that, but like yeah, it's always one of those things of like how much of a metaphor do you want in your movie, like monster as metaphor, but like but you don't also like how much of that do you want to keep a secret, and how much do you want to like no, this is like we're keeping this up front and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things.
Mm,
This
yeah. Do you have a final one yet? You think for your Mount Rushmore?
uh well, you kind of took Ripley. uh I don't know in that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You know, another one I forgot to mention, like an honorary one, I really do like a lot. I know it's only supposed to be four, but Jada Pinkett in the Demon, I think it was Demon Knight. I really like her a
Oh
lot in
yeah.
that. I like her a lot in that movie, and that was the Tales of the Crypt movie.
Mhm.
Um, what I like about her becoming like a final girl in that is like you kind of just almost don't see it kind of coming. Like you really
Mhm.
don't know who's gonna really make it all out. And I really love her a lot in that movie, Jada Pinkett Smith and Demon Knight. I love her a lot in that.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Uh, did you ever see that movie, Demon Knight? With great
No.
performance by Billy Zane, really great. He plays like a devil in
Yeah.
that movie.
Yeah,
Um,
I've definitely see. I think I saw the first Tales of the Crypt movie with other guy. I wait, I might be mixing up with Creep Show. I'm mixing up my anthology stuff.
yeah,
Would this might be cheating, but would the girl from Teeth count as a final girl?
from
Or
Teeth. I don't think I've ever heard of Teeth. Which
it's like she has uh, teeth in her vagina and she could bite people.
that was the '07 movie.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen this one
No.
before.
Yeah.
But hey, if you want to put her on there, if
Yeah,
that's on
yeah,
your list,
sure. I'll do that.
hmm,
Yeah. Because I'm trying to think of like, I don't want to go like too comedically or like funny or stuff like that because I feel like that's almost cheating with the final girl of like the girl from Tucker and Dale versus the Forces of Evil. Because
yeah,
that movie is kind of just straight up a parody.
yeah, yeah.
uh, but yeah, I could talk about my Mount Rushmore of like horror movie kills or horror movie villains for years, but this I'm stumping on a bit.
Yeah. I mean, we could come back. We can do another show in October. We can do like
Yeah.
horror movie kills. and horror movie villains. We could do that. When
Oh
we do
yeah,
it.
of course. Yeah, anything like
Like,
that. Yeah, it
October
was really
there.
cool talking to you guys.
Yeah. So yeah, that was our discussion on Final Girls,
Mhm.
and just horror movies in general there.